Great. So welcome to the 4th MRA Mapping Hangout for the Mountain Rescue Association, and this is presented in conjunction with the National Alliance for Public Safety GIS Foundation. I am here this month with Morgan Moe, who is an MRA mapping volunteer, and Morgan is also founder and CEO of MountainMed Online. She's also a student, and she's going to be helping us answer questions as the year progresses with the MRA Mapping Platform. And maybe, Morgan, you could say hi and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello, welcome. My name's Morgan, like Paul said, and I'm excited to be working with the MRA doing some technology things, so helping on some of the tutorials and helping answer questions that you all have about the mapping platforms we're using.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. And Morgan's going to go ahead and go on mute, but she'll be monitoring the Q&A and helping to gather some of the questions for today. So just a quick reminder of why we're doing the Mapping Hangouts. For all of you that do search and rescue, you know that it's a spatially inherent problem. In other words, when we're looking for a missing person, how could you possibly do that without maps? But we wanted to do better as an organization, the MRA, in collecting our mission statistics. And to do this, we're using something called ArcGIS Online. And the MRA Mapping Hangout is an opportunity to maybe see what else can be done with this platform and hear from some other people who are doing mapping and related things in search and rescue, and just to get together each month and review some new things. This month, we'll go through a few different topics. We will do an update on the data portal and see how the data is progressing for the year. We will quickly go over the map of the month, which is a severe weather map. It's actually a web mapping application, and we'll go over that for this month. I wanted to stop and do a quick overview of what WebGIS is, because for many of you, even if you're a GIS person, this is a really new topic, and that's what ArcGIS Online is it's a WebGIS. So I'll just give a couple of quick slides to hopefully clear up some confusion. And then we'll briefly touch on the tutorial that was released for this month. It is how to create an interactive clue log. And I think that'll be interesting for many of you. And the handout for the tutorial is already made available on the MRA mapping site. And I'll show you how to get that. And then at the end, we'll hear just for Morgan Moe on a few minutes about MountainMed Online. Last month, if you missed it, we talked a little bit about preventative search and rescue outreach with the Antris app. It's a free app that you can download to do some trip planning. And so it's a great thing to reach out to, especially new outdoor recreationists, on how to make some trip plans that they can share with friends and loved ones to make sure they're safe. And Kayla also talked to us a little bit about the enterprise part of Antris, which is actually helping to monitor members of your organization and your team. So this month, we want to talk about the MRA Mapping Portal. For those of you that might be new to this process, maybe you're newly appointed from your team. Once you get to the MRA Mission Data Portal homepage, you can click on the MRA Mission Data Portal for 2016. That takes you to a little website that brings up some forms, and there's a tutorial that goes with this as well. And this is where you enter your new missions. We talked in past months a little bit about the short form and the long form. The short form was designated by the MRA for really simple missions that don't involve a lot of complexity. And so you would think if you have a search operation or something more complex, you'll be using the long form. And you can read more about that in the tutorial number 2. But the most important part of this process is not just that we collect mission information, but that we actually put it on a map. And so that's the part of the GeoForm that you'll actually be seeing later again today that's made this process so valuable. Because by adding all of our points on a map, we can track these throughout the year and have really much more thorough reporting on the MRA mission statistics. So here's a snapshot from the operations dashboard. You can see here it shows the number of missions and the number of persons found, and this is a screenshot from last month. And here's a quick screenshot from just yesterday on my time. And you can see here there are 249 missions entered. And there's been at least 15 search and rescue cases where both the point last seen, or the initial pointing point, and the point found have been plotted. So again, if you go to the MRA homepage, the MRA mapping homepage, this can actually be accessed from MRA.org as well. They've updated the link. Just waiting for the MRA page to load up here. So if for some reason you lost the link to the MRA Mapping Portal, you can come over here to Member Services on MRA.org, and that will also link you to the MRA Mapping Platform. From here, you click on the MRA Mission Data Portal, and this is again where you'll find the form you need to fill out the data. There's a web mapping application for editing incidents and moving the location. That can also be used for data entry, and the 2016 dashboard. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 2016 dashboard to see where we're at with data collection. Now there's quite a number, there's probably 6 or 7 MRA teams that are already collecting data and in a spatial format on another platform or a homegrown database. And at the end of the year, or towards the end of the year, we do import some of those. So that's why the numbers might be low based on the actual number of instances that have been performed, or the missions that have been performed. But we can see here, even just from yesterday, there's been 2 new entries, looks like from Salt Lake County and Southern Arizona. And you all have access to this dashboard with your MRA login, so you can go in and actually get the latest updates from teams and see where they're doing rescues. As you can see, based off of last year's data, there should be a big jump in activity. So I know a lot of you will be getting busy here as we move through May and into June. And it seems like June, July, and August, at least based off of last year, will be the busiest months for all of you as people take their summer vacations and get out into the mountains. Remember, it's really important, especially if you're an active team, that you don't wait until the end of the year to enter data, because the information won't be as fresh. You're more likely to make mistakes if you're entering many missions in a row. So try to get in there, at least once a week, preferably right after the incident, to fill out the GeoForm as soon as you can after the mission's complete. So from the homepage, each month you'll see a new map of the month on the homepage. So this just shows up in the gallery. And last month was cell phone connectivity, or I should say it's a national broadband map. This month we're looking at a severe weather map from Esri. It's a public information map. And we'll go ahead and take a look at that now. So if we go to the MRA homepage, the MRA mapping homepage, you'll see it's right here. It's the first thumbnail on your left. And when I click on that, you'll see it's actually taking us out to the Esri Disaster Response ArcGIS Online organization, where they're hosting this map. So this is not an MRA map, but you have access to it through a link in the mapping platform. So what do we have here on this map? Well, I'm going to turn off a few layers because it's very active right now. And on this map, we have live feeds coming from NOAA, the weather agency here in the United States. And these are reports from weather spotters. So there's reports from trained weather observers of hail, We can see wind events, tornadoes. And for those of you in Colorado, I know there was some tornado activity last week. So we can actually come in and turn on all of the storm reports for tornadoes for the past week. There's also radar in here from AccuWeather. And good news, Morgan, I think we have we do have Canadian weather up here. It doesn't stop at the border, I promise. There it is coming in. So that's good news. So this is a map with live information. You can also add social media feeds for those of you that do that sort of thing, and it'll give you geotagged images and tweets from the location when you sign in. And that can be helpful, especially during the early stages of a disaster. It's a very simple web mapping application. It does allow you to change the base map, but just to imagery and the topo map. And that makes more sense as you zoom in to look at some of the potentially affected areas. The imagery can be helpful for that. Okay, so that's the map of the month. You can access this map and other maps also through your groups. Now, I'm a member of a lot of groups, but for those of you that are just doing data entry, you'll see just the groups that you've been invited to. And these maps of the month and other interesting maps will be put in the MRA Mapping Hangout group. So if you like the map of the month from last month and you can't find it, this is a good place to look. There's our wireless coverage national broadband map. Moving on, we also have a map that I'll send the link out for here from the Fort McMurray fire. So it's a little bit closer to our friend Morgan up here, up north in Canada. And this map is being used by Esri Canada to share information with the media. It also has, like you saw on the last map, some live feeds. And in this case, social media can be really helpful because it shows some pictures from on the ground and even some YouTube videos. But I wanted to stop and back up a little bit because I know that what we're doing with the MRA Mission Data Portal is quite different from maybe what you thought GIS was before. And it's because we're using a platform that's called WebGIS. ArcGIS Online is a WebGIS platform. And consumer mapping, MapQuest, Google Maps, and other things have really brought digital maps and interactive maps to all of us and to all of our laptops and even our smart devices. So GIS is now powered by that same technology to put apps into the hands of different people in our organization. So within the MRA, we now have access to different mapping apps, but also throughout the community. And so the public information map I just showed you for the Fort McMurray fire is an example of an organization sharing a map with the public. But in order to get involved with WebGIS, I think it's important to have an understanding of some of the basic pieces of a WebGIS. And so I have a very high-tech diagram that I'm going to use to do this. And in this high-tech diagram, this green circle represents a base map. So what is a base map? A base map is the backdrop for our map. It's the thing that you probably think of as a map. In other words, we can have a topographic map, we can have an imagery map, we can have, actually in the ArcGIS Online platform, a lot of different thematic base maps. But a base map just features the data that's already there before an incident occurs. And it's also not very data rich. It's really a picture. So think of a base map as a picture of the world through one particular lens. On top of our base map, we like to add layers of information. And so for those of you that have been doing this a lot longer than I have, we used to use chloropleth or plastic transparent mylar to draw on a map. Maybe we might draw in, well, here's a new road or here's a new trail. These layers are like those different chloroplasts, except for they are digital. And when I say feature layer, they're digital and they are coming from an online source, whether it's ArcGIS Online, a KML from Google Maps, or other formats of layers that can be added to our base map. So if you've worked a little bit with the web maps, you may have seen that you can turn layers on and off. These are the feature layers on top of our base map. Feature layers have information, they have symbols. I can click on them, I can open a table. Feature layers typically have features and data behind them. So think of them as a database that you can see on a map. And then that brings us to the web map. If a base map plus feature layers presents this sort of map mashup, the web map is where we come to view and author and craft this particular piece of WebGIS. So here we have the WebMap Viewer, which allows us to both simultaneously look at our base map and our feature layers and do a whole host of other things. You can see here there's an editing button, a base map button. We can print this map. We can do some measurements. And so this is really more like the GIS that I learned, ArcGIS Desktop. It just doesn't have as many tools. But you can really do a lot of powerful things with this particular web map. And there's tutorials on all the different parts of this. I think I've mentioned that to a few of you. One of the best places to learn about how the web map works is to just open up any map in, actually just click on the map button. And on the left side, you'll see a very simple tutorial on how the web map works and how to find more feature layers to put on the map. And so if you haven't done that yet, I really encourage you to take these tutorials. They're very short and interactive. But the real power of the web map is the fact that we can share them as applications. So think of the applications as this fancy wrapper or fancy clothes we put on our web map so that it's presentable and so that it solves problems for people who maybe aren't familiar with a web map or aren't familiar with GIS. And so you'll see in the tutorial this week and also the one we did last week, there's a little share button up here on the web map that when we click that share button, it's like hiring a web application developer, our own little pocket developer that's going to go out, put together a bunch of computer programming language, and they're going to put a new wrapper on this web map, and for a very specific reason. In other words, last month we made a map that allowed us to view an elevation profile. It's a very specific function. The map that we'll make this month is a data collection map. There's other apps that come installed on your phone that can view this web map. One of them is called the Collector, Collector for ArcGIS. And so this whole concept of base maps and layers and web maps and applications is very new for most of us. And so I wanted to take a second just to sort of explain how that works. And maybe the tutorial this month will make a little more sense. So again, feature layers go on top of base maps, which make our web map, and then we share those as applications. All right, and that brings us to our tutorial, but maybe I will come back here to the Hangout real quick, just to see if you're still with us. We've got 7 viewers. Not sure if we're getting any questions here. I'll check the Q&A panel. Okay, seeing none. You can also comment on both the YouTube page if you're watching this through YouTube, and you can also comment through the G+ page, and we'll get back to those either towards the end of the Hangout or right after. All right, so as I mentioned, this month there is a tutorial created just for you, the MRA, and it's all about creating a clue log. And you're actually using the GeoForm application to do this. You can access the tutorials right now from our home page. You'll see here tutorials 1, which was making a public map of the 2015 MRA data. So if you wanted to show the public what your missions were like in 2015 and where they're located, you can customize that just for your team. We can also enter and edit data in the 2016 Mission Data Portal. This is a real overview of the mission data entry process, the reason why most of you are signed up and using this for the MRA to enter data. Last month, I did a quick tutorial on how to map your GPS data on an elevation profile map, and then that's an online map that you can share. And then this month, we covered creating a clue log. And so right from the homepage, you can click on this link. This takes you to an ArcGIS Online little website called an item property page. And this is where there's a brief overview of what the tutorial is, but you can just click open, and that will go ahead and open a PDF, which is just a document you can view. You can download the PDF, although you might want to check back sometimes because we make updates based off of your feedback, and I actually updated this PDF a few days ago. And you can see that on the item property page, the updated date. So this was last modified on May 8th, and I see there's 11 downloads so far. So once this PDF loads up, you can use it right in the browser, or you might prefer to download it so you can print it and use it later. And here is the tutorial. So you'll see in this tutorial, I've broken it down into some steps. So you don't have to do it all at once, but it's good if you can finish a step. And the first step is creating a new feature layer. And we do this without using any real desktop GIS software. We do this right from your ArcGIS Online account, and we do this from the My Content folder. So the tutorial is in detail, great detail, but I'm going to start here just to give you an idea of where things are and how this works. And so I'll move through it fairly quickly. I typically create folders for things that I'm doing, whether it's a particular SAR incident or a particular project. It's probably a good idea just to call this something like tutorial 4. And that creates a new folder so that everything I create for this tutorial goes in there. I'm going to click on the Create button, and this is where I'm going to be able to make a new feature layer. Don't worry too much about these other options for now. Feature layer is what we want because it has the information we need. Rather than create a feature layer from scratch, you'll see here there's a variety of templates available from Esri. But what we want to be able to do is create an existing layer from one that's inside of our organization. So here you can use the feature layer that I created for this tutorial. These feature layers can be customized, although you typically will use a desktop software to do that. Maybe in later months I can show you how to do that with either ArcGIS Pro or with ArcGIS Online, although you're limited. So it's important to make sure that the feature layer you're using as a template meets all of your needs. So I'm open to feedback on this clue log feature layer. So now what I do when I hit create, it's going to go out and fetch the different layers I need. You'll see here I added a clues layer and a planning point layer, because those are two things you might want to be able to quickly update. The extent of your map doesn't matter too much, although you could focus in on a particular area. And then you're going to give it a title. Typically, they don't like spaces in these titles, so you can either do an underscore or just don't include any spaces. And then we like to tag things. Since I'm doing this as a Hangout on Air demonstration, I'm going to put HOA. And then we're going to create that hosted feature layer. So what we're actually doing is creating a new layer of information, but it doesn't have any data. It's just a template, and it's in there. It's in there blank. In other words, if we open up a table, there's no data in it, but it's ready to be edited. And so we want to next open this in a map. And now we're going from just having a feature layer to actually having a web map. And you can tell it's a web map because it has this viewer around it with all the different tools, and it even says web map up here. I've predefined some symbology for you, but you can go in and change this as we've seen in earlier tutorials. But for now, I'm just going to click done. You'll see here we now have 2 layers in our map, although the map is blank. If we open up the table, you can see here that there's places for data to be entered. But I want to go ahead and test this out. Oh, can't locate me because I turned my services off, but I am actually in Wellington, New Zealand. And I want to test this by clicking the edit button. So edit has a little pencil here. And I'm just going to test out plotting a clue that's not relevant here, just so we can see if it works. And we've plotted our first clue. And so I can come in here and edit some basic fields. I can even add an attachment. But you'll see here, this is a little bit more cumbersome and not really designed for data entry. And so that's why we want to make an application. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I can either delete this point or just click undo if it's not relevant. And now what we want to do is actually share our map. So before we share, we have to always save our maps so that we don't lose our work. I'm going to put this in my little folder that I made just for this. And it's always good to put a short summary. Now, we in the MRA, we haven't come up with any standard rules for how we tag things, but some agencies have, and I'll be sure to pass those on so that your team can maybe adopt some of those tagging rules to make things easier to find. So now we have a saved map. We can share it by clicking on the share button. And we can decide who we want to share this with. And so I explained this in the tutorial, but we could, if we have permission, share this map with the public. So maybe this is more of a crowdsourcing map and we want information from the public. Or we can just restrict it to the MRA or members of a certain group. So you can imagine a group that's designed just for a particular incident, and I'm inviting various different people from ArcGIS Online into that group for an incident. And so what I want to do now is create a web app. There's 2 different types of general categories of apps. There's configurable apps, and there's apps you can create with the web app builder. We'll get into the web app builder maybe in a later tutorial. Last week you saw the elevation profile map, but we want to collect data this week. So I'm just going to say collect or on the Collect Data tab here, and you'll see there's a variety of options for collecting data, but the one I want to use is the GeoForm. So now I want to create the GeoForm app. And so this is where I've just hired a little JavaScript developer, and they're going to put together my my web mapping application for me, and then I'm going to go in and configure it. So now you've seen we've gone from a web map in the URL to something called the app GeoForm up here. Everything in ArcGIS Online gets its own little identifier. Think of that as like its own little unique website. And since we're in editing mode of this GeoForm, that's why it says edit up here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We've already chosen the web map we want to use for this. It's asking us which layer we want to be able to edit. I can use all layers or just choose one. In the tutorial, I have you choose all layers, but for now, I'll go to just put some clues in there. We can customize the header. We can add a logo here. It has to be a logo that's already online, so maybe your team's logo. You can add information in here. You can even embed images. Imagine maybe the image of the missing person or a clue like a boot print or something like that. You could add that right onto the GeoForm here. But generally, I just include some brief instructions. So much of this can be customized, but the one that's probably most important is what is the data they're going to actually collect? And maybe I don't need to show them all of the different fields, especially if I don't know what they mean. I'll go ahead and uncheck some of these. These are left over from the MapSAR ArcGIS desktop data model. And I may not actually use these at all, so I'm going to turn them off. I can also come in here and get rid of yucky things like underscores. Change the labels to things that make sense to people. If I need to, I can add to help explain what I mean. So here I say comments, but I can say, please describe where this clue was found with a description of the field location. And there's much more you can do. What I'm going to do here is allow for attachments, which means a photo or a document. I'm going to choose my style. There's a lot of different styles here. It gives you a little preview of what it might look like here. My favorite right now is actually Yeti. We can decide if there's going to be a viewer that allows people who use this form to go and see other clues. I know in some incidents we wouldn't want them to be able to see the other clues. We might be monitoring behind the scenes on a separate web map. But I'll go ahead and leave the viewer in here so you can see what it looks like. And we'll sort our clues by name. There's various different options here. The ones I wanted you to focus on for this is you might want to enable a base map so they can turn imagery on and off, and maybe give them some different sources of coordinates. I know a lot of us use UTMs, and I'll add US National Grid as well. And now we have an opportunity to just quickly preview our application to see if we're generally happy with what it looks like. You can see here there's something going on with my logo, so I can go back up to details and say disable the logo since I didn't add one. So now I can just go to publish. We can save our map, and now it should be live. And so this isn't a map shared with the public, but it is shared with you with your MRA sign-in. And you can actually go out and now test this GeoForm. I'll try to share that link out with you. I'm not sure if it'll work. Okay, so now we have a GeoForm that we can use to collect clue log information so that it's not lost and that it's immediately put on a map. And I can just use the map to navigate. I don't have to use coordinates or an address. I can just simply click on the map and I can move this around as needed and submit my entry. We did enable the viewer. The viewer allows us to go in and see what other people are entering. So this is really useful in some use cases. I believe you can do this with the MRA Mission GeoForm, but this just allows us to quickly see the other mission data entries, and if there were other layers on the map, we could see that here. So that's it for the tutorial. I just want to quickly show you how it works. The details are in here, and I really look forward to seeing your feedback. This is something I do on my own time, so feedback is welcome, and understand that I'm doing the best I can to make it easy for you. If this is something you're interested in, please let me know. If there's another type of app you'd like to learn about in the coming months, please send an email out to the MRAmapping@gmail.com. A quick note, web maps and web mapping applications are really exciting. They really change the way we look at maps, but I know for those of you that are doing search and rescue in the field, that these maps don't necessarily replace paper maps, especially since most of us are working oftentimes where there's no internet connection. There are web mapping applications like Collector that work offline. However, there's always going to be a need for producing paper maps. So if you're interested in how to make a paper map and receive more training, especially using ArcGIS Pro or ArcMap, we'd love to hear from you. But remember, there's benefits to using both paper and web maps, and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. If you want to learn more about ArcGIS Online and just GIS in general, there's a free ebook at learn.arcgis.com. But if you just type in the ArcGIS book in Google, it should come up with this interactive book. There are print copies available. I'm not sure how you get a hold of them, but you can download the whole thing as a PDF or use it as an interactive website. And this is a great new resource. And then finally, I was wondering, maybe we could stop and see if there are any questions and transition over to Morgan, who's going to talk a little bit about her very exciting project that some of you might have heard of called MountainMed Online. All right.
So
Did you see any questions come up there, Morgan?
I'm looking, I don't see anything in the chat or the Q&A. Does anyone have anything that they want to put down there quickly before we switch topics?
All right.
Okay. Excellent. So like Paul said, one of the projects I'm currently working on is MountainMed Online. And what it is essentially an online education platform for various wilderness skills, hopefully with the goal of preventing incidents in the backcountry and maybe lightening the SAR load. But one of the courses we have that Paul's got up on the slide there is Map and Compass Navigation 101. So this is a course that I put together a few months ago, and it's been incredibly well received by volunteer SAR professionals from across the mostly United States, but from around the world as well. And it's really just a basic introduction to map and compass skills. One of the things I saw up here in Calgary and in the Canadian Rockies was a lot of people just without the basic map and compass skills or even map reading skills, relying heavily on their technology. I'm not against technology, but I think a little bit of a balance is good. So I put together the course, and it focuses mostly on how to read topographical maps, how to use topographical maps to measure routes, track distance, things like that. And then as well as compass skills. So how to use your compass to take bearings on the map and out in real life as well. So to access the course, you can actually, I think Paul's going to a browser. Is that where you were heading, Paul? Anyway, you can go just into any browser. It works best on Google Chrome, and you can go to MountainMedOnline.com. And from our home screen, you'll be able to navigate to an item on the top that says All Courses. And then from all courses, you'll see a number of the courses we have for first aid and other things. But in the bottom left there, you have Map and Compass 101. And anyone can sign up for free. And as you go through, it's basically video lectures for each topic. And then with every video lecture, there's usually some text, some pictures to read if that helps you learn a bit better. And then there's a comment section for every topic that we go through as well. So you can leave your comments. And then there's myself and a couple other instructors that monitor that, so we can give kind of one-on-one attention as needed. So you can see Paul's scrolling through. We got the curriculum there, some questions about the course, and like I said, you can just enroll for free. All you need is an email, and you're in the door and good to go. So if you're watching this, please by all means go on, sign up, check it out, and comment in there, or email me directly if you have any questions. And more importantly, as SAR people, if you have topics that you think I've neglected or missed entirely, let me know via email, and I'd like to add those to the course as well. Perfect. Was there any questions you had specifically on some of the projects I have here, Paul, that you want me to address, or anyone that is live?
Well, one thing is I have taken a look at this particular course, and I think it's a really good start, especially for younger people who probably didn't learn about map and compass skills like I did in the Boy Scouts or in the Girl Scouts and other things. And I think it's a really great way to get people just interested in navigation, especially if you don't have time to do an in-person class. And an in-person class would be a great follow-up to this. But I think it's a really neat new learning environment. And Morgan does a nice job of organizing information, much better than I did today in the Hangout.
Well, thank you.
Great. So Morgan's role, along with another volunteer, Lindsay, they're going to be helping to triage some of the MRA mapping questions. So when you type in MRA mapping at gmail.com, myself, John Petter, Monty Bell, and now Morgan and Lindsay will also see your questions so that we can more adequately help you as volunteers, helping other volunteers. With that, I'd really like to thank you, Morgan, for joining us. Maybe we'll see you again in the coming months.
Certainly. Thank you for having me.
And we will wrap up. This particular video will be live on the MRA YouTube account, also on the G+ page, and the link should be sent to you automatically as well. I'll go in there and make a few edits as there's some downtime in the beginning, but other than that, it's good to go and you can share it with others, and I hope you enjoyed it. make sure you get to the tutorial sometime this month. And don't forget to enter your mission data. All right, I'll see you all next month. Thanks so much.